Welcome back to Hashtag Single with Jeanette Bonner. I am not a relationship expert or sex therapist. I'm just a regular New York City woman navigating the world as a single, independent feminist. Hashtag Single is about having honest conversations with other singles in today's device-obsessed culture. So I hope you'll join me on this interesting, challenging, and complex journey as we navigate the ins and outs of singledom.
Back to Hashtag Single. I'm Jeanette, your host, and I'm so excited to bring you a brand new one-on-one episode where I talk to a lovely, important, fabulous single female, someone I met on the internet, yet another wonderful stranger whose singleness is... Rachel just responded to a post from, I was like, hey, are you single? Do you want to talk about it? I believe on Facebook. So Rachel, thank you so much for saying yes and coming on Hashtag Single.
Absolutely. I love to talk about single life.
Girl, me too. And then Rachel brought her friend Andrew. Andrew or Andy? What do you prefer?
Oh, Andrew would be nice.
And Andrew. And I think this is the point where I'm supposed to ask you guys how you know each other.
Yes, so he actually saved my life in an African safari.
So true.
He is a hero, and all women that, if you are located in our city, I'll leave that up to you, Andrew, if you want to share where that is. He is a very eligible bachelor, so.
And he saves lives. And then I would like to hear Andrew's version of how you know each other.
We met on Bumble.
Aha. So, my listening audience, you can choose which story you like the best. I still am unclear entirely. But, some mysteries are best left unsolved. Don't you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
So somehow they know each other. It could be dirty. It could be like, I don't know, they bumped into each other at the post office. We don't really know. And it doesn't really matter. So we're here to talk about Rachel. Andrew, you know the rules of Hashtag Single. You're going to sit back and listen like a gentleman. And then we'll check in with you when we are in need of your opinion. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Great.
I'm sorry. I just love this.
I'm glad you do. I'm glad it tickles you. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad we're talking. Rachel, you know how this whole thing begins. Give me a little backstory. Let me know about you, like whatever information you feel we would like to know in order to set you up on how you are single at this very moment in your life.
Okay, so dating wise, I had one boyfriend in high school. I don't really have crushes on people very often. When I went to university, my first semester, I went to BYU, Idaho. I stepped on campus and I thought to myself, wow, there's so much to learn, so much to explore. I'm excited to be here to further my education. I don't even want to talk to boys. And lo and behold, I met my ex-husband at the gym. He approached me
God.
We dated for 8 months and then got married. We moved to China 3 weeks after our, not annulment. That's the opposite of marriage. We moved to China after 3 weeks of being married. We lived there for a year and we were married for 5.5 years. I left him and then moved to China, where I had like one boyfriend and one girlfriend and really just didn't enjoy the dating scene over there. And now I've moved back to the US. I've been here for a month. So.
Whoa. Okay. I don't think I even knew that because you and I were messaging over the summer. So at that point you were still in China?
Yes.
You know what? That does ring bell. I remember you saying that you were international, but I just assumed you were like on an extended vacation or something.
No.
That's wild. There. I have so many questions. So first of all, how does someone approach someone at a gym that makes you not hate them immediately?
I know. Yes. So it was an LDS college. So Mormon. BYU is a religious school. So the gym.
What does LDS
campus
stand for? Sorry to interrupt
It stands for Latter-day Saints. The full name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it was actually a very safe gym. I was working out with my roommate. We were doing abs. And the way he tells the story is he was with his roommate. He was like, dude, check if she has a ring. I don't want to like approach her. And then he told his roommate in Spanish, like, do not let me leave this gym without asking her on a date. So my roommate and I walked out and he stopped us. He's like, hey, how you guys doing? Like, we chatted for a little bit. He was really talking to my roommate at first. And so I was like, he's going to ask out my roommate.
Very clever.
Yeah, I know. And then he said, he turned to me and he was like, I think you're super cute. I would like to ask you out. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I don't know you. And he said, you're right. How else would you suggest that I do it? I've never seen you before and I'll probably never see you again.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. Okay. And he was really attractive. So I was like, all right, fine. We'll give it a try. So that's how.
That was actually quite respectful. I mean, I would just be mortified because I'd be like, oh my, I'm like, literally, I don't have any makeup on and my face is bright red. And this is not how I ever want to be talked to. But good for him for doing that in a very, very respectful way.
Indeed.
Although, wait, I have a question about something you said. You said, check to see if she has a ring. Are people at that college coming in engaged or already married?
Sometimes it's actually
that's pretty young.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon for people to get married in university times. It's actually like, I don't know what the word is, but it's kind of an ongoing joke that BYU Idaho stands for BYU I do, simply because it is very common for people to go there wanting to find their mate. And so getting married at a pretty young age is fairly common at that school.
That's, I hope this doesn't offend you in any way, but I find that a little old fashioned. In the idea of going to school in order to find a husband. It's very 1950s, mid-century to me.
In some ways, yes. And in some ways, it's actually just very much a cultural thing. Sex before marriage isn't something that's practiced in that religion. And so I think in combination with that, as well as a real focus in the religion of the importance of family, the importance of building that, it tends to happen at a younger age. Yeah.
I hear that. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Just because this makes me curious based on other conversations I've had from people on the podcast that do come from a Christian and a religious background. Is there any shame affiliated with not finding a potential mate or husband after graduation or by graduation then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for some people there is, for some people there's not. I really think it's a family thing as well as a personal preference. Like if I would have gone there and not gotten married, it totally would have been a not big deal because I was so focused on my education anyways.
Right.
And I didn't want to be like a stay-at-home mom or anything like that. That was never really my focus. If there was someone that, had that desire, I just want to get married and have kids, and they didn't find someone, my guess is that it would be a little bit more frustrating. But I think it really just depends on the person. And women are very much encouraged to, get an education, further your education, like get set up so that you can really I think, this is my personal opinion, is nurture your children in the best way possible. Be an example to them of, a woman that gets her education. And then if you do decide to stay home with them, all power to you. But the most important focus is right on furthering your education. And so it's kind of contradictory in some ways of get married, have children, have a family, and also further your education. But I think as a collective, the religion is certainly moving more towards get your education and make a decision of how you want to live your life.
Well, it's an interesting, I love obviously furthering education, but it's an interesting approach. Whereas I feel especially in some very career focused areas like the East Coast and New England and where I went to school, it's get your education in order to maybe get further education or to get the best job possible. But it's interesting to me, the idea of get your education so that you are then able to, and correct me if I'm interpreting this incorrectly, but pass that education on to your children in the best way so that you can best nurture and raise a family.
Yeah, and I think that's just comes from the traditional gender roles that are normally stressed in the church is that like women are the primary nurturers of children, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think that both people need to be actively co-parenting, and it's just bullshit if it's not that way.
100%.
But for some people, you know, they're able to work it out that way. But yeah, it is like, and I think it's true for that, for men and for women. Like if you are more educated, whether it be a formal education or a trade school or the school of life, like let's be real, there's so much room for that, is being an example to your children, if you want children. Yeah. Or the people that, you know, you mentor and nurture in general, of always just being a lifelong learner. I think that's a really important value to have.
But there's not any real shame as far as, you know, if you like don't decide to have children or if you decide to pursue a career. It's sort of a pro-choice
in terms
situation.
of kids, there would definitely be pressure. I just choose to decide, like, I don't give a fuck if you're in my business and you're asking me why I haven't gotten married. It's like, well, I was married for 5 years. Do you have someone
I did the damn thing. Get off my back.
Or do you have someone that you'd be interested in introducing me to? Because if not, then we don't need to be having this conversation. It's none of your business.
100%.
Yeah.
That's so intriguing. And thank you for going off that tangent. I'm just like, I don't know anyone that's a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. And so it's really interesting to get your perspective on the standards and the values that are expected for young women today. But back to you, because you have a fascinating story. How did you end up in China?
Yeah. So, the first time my ex-husband just wanted to learn Chinese, and I was like, okay.
Wait, so you guys just like went on a lark?
Basically.
Wow. How brave.
I'm an adventurous spirit. And so I was like, yeah, why not? Let's seize the day. Like, you want to learn Chinese? I can do school online. We can teach, we can earn, like, save some money while we're over there. And so I was like, all for it. But it really, like, China is not the place that you want to spend your first year of marriage. It was really difficult. And I think it set up the foundation for the marriage to honestly, to not be successful. I think we might still be married today had we not had that experience, but that's neither here nor there. I'm super happy with how things turned out for me and for him. But yeah, so that was the first time. And then the second time, it was like I was ready to leave. And so we signed divorce papers on my birthday, actually. It must have been like 3.5 years ago, something like that. I don't remember. And then I told him, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna move to China. I was ready for a fresh start is really what it was. And I was like, I want to leave absolutely everything behind. Where can I go that will allow me to do that? And I had been to China before. I had one friend that was living in Shanghai. And so I messaged her on Facebook. I was like, hey, you should give me a job. So she did. And then I moved over there and started over.
Did you go back to the same province that you were at with your... Okay, excellent.
No.
I was going to say, I was like, well, fresh start, but also like...
I know. I did go back and revisit the town that we lived in, and visited some of our like family, like our Chinese family that we had when we were there. So I was kind of able to rewrite it from that fresh place, but I didn't want to live there. No, it was hell living there. So
you were there. You said you lived there as a single person, and you did try to date when you were there.
I did. I went on dates. Okay. And for the first year that I was there, it was like honestly just like rebound central, learning what I liked and just going on like dates and having it be very casual. And then eventually I was like, you know what, which I knew all along, like this is not for me. This is not who I am or how I like to live my dating life. So eventually after I got my shenanigans out, then I was like, you know what, I'm going to start focusing on like finding a partner like that's a serious, monogamous, committed relationship, not necessarily like a long-term partner, maybe not, but that wasn't really my focus. So I started looking for more serious people, and turns out Shanghai is a very transient city. People are very career focused. Sex is cheap and easy over there. And so finding someone that was really like invested in having more of a monogamous relationship was quite a challenge, especially for someone like me that has standards. I don't want to sleep with someone that I don't know. And so I think that was a deterrent for a lot of people as well, since they could just go and find someone and get their wiggles out and not like really need to have that emotional connection first, which is something I'm not available for. So
that's so interesting. I never really considered. So let's just like broaden the scope a little bit. Like Shanghai is a very international city in terms of commerce and business. Yeah. So I guess you could kind of, if you wanted to like marry that analogy, you would kind of say that city in America would be New York City. And the idea
that's the best comparison.
That one city in an entire country would be like the worst place to date. Is like, it's like the mushy part of the apple, you know, like, I don't know, like you're like, here I am, world, I'm single, but you end up in like literally the worst city that you could possibly be in.
I love that.
To try to experience new dates. I don't know, maybe it was a good experience for you because you were able to test out new things and try on this new persona for you.
Yeah.
Did you think it was like your takeaway now looking back on it? Was it a good experience, or do you think that it wasn't the best city for you to be in as a single person?
You know, as a single person, it wasn't the best place to be in. I wasn't able to find like that partner and that love. But also as a single person, I was able to really solidify my values and my standards. And, you know, over there, I was surrounded by a group of women that are so powerful and so wonderful, so smart, so entrepreneurial, and a lot of men that are in the similar situation, but we're kind of douchebags a lot of the time. And so me watching some girls, some women settle for completely inappropriate treatment from men, and also like me having an opportunity to just say like, you know what, that's really not what I want. I would rather be single than have to deal with you. And so learning that space and coming back into like Colorado Springs, the way that I carry myself, the way that I feel I deserve to be treated, the way that I'm willing, you know, to treat other people and also to communicate my boundaries and my standards is very high and very strict. Like I have a very clear idea of what it is that I desire in a partner. And so kind of from that place, yeah, I think it was an amazing time because now I know what I want and I'm able to identify red flags very quickly into the relationship. Not red flags always as in the guy's a total asshole, but just like this may not be a right fit. And then to be able to say like, yeah, I think you're a great person or whatever, but this probably isn't going to go the direction that I want because I saw so many red flags and like identifying those behaviors. It's just like, okay, great. I can nip it in the bud before it becomes something.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're really lucky, and I feel like I'm in a place where I can do that as well. And I think I'm really lucky to be able to be in that place. I'm realizing in conversations I have with women that not everybody is able to get to that place where of self-confidence and of fully knowing yourself and the strength and the bravery it takes to actually say, I'm going to say no until I am able to say yes. Like I would rather choose singledom of these low value people who are not meeting my standards than just take someone who like maybe might work out. I'm going to like put blinders on and forget that this happened and go forward, you know? Yeah. I had this date on Sunday and it was so bad. It was so bad. So this conversation is very active with me and my friends right now where he just like, he wasn't a bad person. He just exhibited some behaviors that for me were like immediate no's, like because he monopolized the conversation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And
don't do that.
I don't mind being a listener. Like I encouraged him in that path because I had asked him a lot of questions about his job to begin with. And then he sort of like, I think he thought I was just so fascinated by his job. He kept talking about his job to the point where I was like, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm no longer interested. Yeah. And then, so I kind of, he did finally pick up on the cue to change the conversation around. And he asked me, I had been at a film festival on the weekend and he asked me how it was. And I started answering and he picked up his phone and started texting someone while I was answering him. And it was just like, you know, maybe someone could excuse that behavior as like, oh God, he had something going on. And I was like, to me, I learned everything I needed to know about that person in that very moment, because this is a person that will prioritize. I'm going to be fighting for his attention from his work, like our entire relationship. It's going to be his work versus me. And I was like, oh, I'm out. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you're able to like parcel out the piece of information that you have and then be like, I'm going to move on.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. There's a guy that I've been talking to. I guess we've been chatting for about 4 weeks now. I like him a lot. And I think we have really good chemistry. We haven't met in person. He lives in LA. So anyways, we had a video chat the other day. And it was a little bit of the monopoling the conversation, but I noticed the same thing. Like, I started talking and then he started texting. And so I just stopped.
On a face call?
Yeah, we were chatting on Zoom. And so I stopped talking. He was texting and I stopped. And I looked
brave.
at him.
You're smarter than I am. I was such a pussy about it. I was like, I just kind of did this.
Yeah.
And I should have actually just been ballsier about it and been like, no, when you're done, it's fine, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good line. That's what I should have said. And I thought about and so I stopped and then he started texting again. So I stopped again. And I was like, I just looked and I kind of made a face of what's going on. And he picked up on it. But if it does ever happen again, because he's shown other signs of being very empathetic and very emotionally intelligent, I think he would handle it well. But
you're willing to give this a pass.
Yeah, and just to kind of see how he handles it, but that's because there are a lot of other really good things in place. If it ever happens again though, I will say something, and then if something even tiny small happens again, it's okay, we're done.
I think so too. I think there's a lot of women that give me, I don't know if you receive this too. I get a lot of criticism for being, for having my standards too high, whatever that freaking means, of well, maybe he had a bad day, or maybe you need to actually communicate that you didn't like that or something. And I was like, I don't know. I find women to be highly intuitive creatures, and maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but like I said, to me, what that showed me was this person is very involved with their work. And if you can't give me 2 hours of your attention on a Sunday night without talking about work and taking a work phone call, then all I see is a downhill slope of where this is going to go, times 20. You know what I mean?
That's what I think. And I think trust your intuition too. Not just don't ask your brain what it thinks, because we have been conditioned to give the benefit of the doubt. That's what women are supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Play small, be nice, don't stand up for yourself. You don't want to be bossy. You don't want to be bitchy. Okay, so stop, ask your body, sink into yourself and check the gut feeling. And sometimes it's a gut feeling, sometimes it's a heart feeling, sometimes it's a throat feeling. Everybody experiences it a little bit differently. For me, I get a little bit of a shiver and a little bit of a slimy feeling. This is so weird. But just explaining how my intuition speaks to me is a little bit of a slimy feeling, and just a wall comes up. That's how I know that it's a no for me. The boundaries have been crossed and I'm not interested in rebuilding that trust. Versus when I turn off my brain and just check in with myself, if my heart is a little bit more open, then I can kind of navigate it out and know that it's my responsibility to speak up and to have a conversation hey, when I'm talking, you're texting, I find that disrespectful. Is this something that you do frequently? Is there an emergency? Because if not, something you need to know about me is I don't stand for that. And if that's something that happens again, this is not going to work out. It's my responsibility to say that and see how he handles it.
You're right. And I got schooled a little bit. Someone was like, why didn't you actually just say, I don't, yeah. And you're like, I was like, you're right. I've been socialized to be polite with people that I don't know yet. And I wish that my inner strong woman had spoken up and been like, you know what? And said exactly what you just said. It was priceless.
Be polite to yourself.
I didn't. I know. I don't know how else to explain it as to except that in the moment I was thinking, I'm already out, so I'm just gonna ride this, and Like, I don't need to like ruffle any feathers because I'm already done. Like, I don't need to, but I should have stood up for myself and said it, literally the words you just said. I wish I had. I wish I had.
Record it, memorize it, program it in so that
it on
next
dates.
time it happens, it'll just come out of your mouth and you'll be like, whoa, who was that?
No, I'm going to have a little sound clip on my phone. I'll be like, hey, can I play something for you right now?
I literally
He's gonna be like, who's that woman?
Time.
I'll be like, she's my inner goddess.
Yes.
No. I'm so curious what are the differences or similarities between, I'm assuming you're app dating. So like dating on apps in Colorado Springs versus dating on apps in Shanghai.
Yeah. So Bumble wasn't really a thing in Shanghai. Like, guys would use it to trick women into thinking that they wanted a relationship when they really just wanted to play. I didn't really use Bumble over there. And to be totally honest, I don't like Bumble simply because I don't like making the first move. And in my experience, I know other women have had different experiences, but when I make the first move, the guy usually like doesn't carry the conversation. And so I've found it difficult in my experience because I have a very strong personality. Like I get super excited about things. And so like I'm excited about everything all the time. But sometimes online that comes across as like, oh, she's really interested. I can chill and take the back seat. I know it doesn't work that way for everybody. But in Shanghai, people only used Tinder. And people use Tinder for relationships, for hookups, for threesomes. I had people on there sometimes, like I saw descriptions of like, I'm interested in voyeurism. If that's something you're into, like, let's meet up. Like I'm a BDSM dom, like looking for a submissive and like things like that. I haven't gone onto Tinder in the US, so I don't know if that's a thing here or not. But I actually use Mutual app mainly because that is an LDS dating app. And
I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, I'm kind of like
Mutual?
a flexi Mormon. Yeah, it's called Mutual. And so I really want somebody that has kind of that religious background from me, not necessarily super active, but I find myself connecting more with people on that app. Although they don't live in Colorado usually, but it's fine.
I was just thinking like the range of your experiences from people being like very overtly sex positive in Shanghai to like being on this I like Mormon flex app, which as we just talked about could potentially be a little more constrictive in terms of gender roles. Like your experience in dating, like you've hit the entire edges of the pool. And I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I guess that's true, huh?
You're just a international woman with very expansive tastes, and that just makes you even more fabulous.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I've explored the corners. I've found my boundaries and like learned where it's like, you know what? Nah, that's not for me. Yeah.
I think when we connected, one of the things you said you wanted to talk about was trying to date again post-divorce, which is not something we cover a lot on the podcast, just simply because I don't have a ton of guests that have been, for better or for worse, that have been divorced. I know there's a large population of people that are being divorced, but either they or I don't know, like not actively dating, or they're not as vocal about it as I think sort of my community and my listeners are. So I don't know. I wanted to sort of open up the conversation to you about your experience, what's been difficult, what's been illuminating, where you're at in that journey.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really found that it's affected me in terms of like when I say I'm divorced, usually like the reaction is kind of like either like, oh, okay. I had one guy, like some guys are like, I'm so sorry for you. And I'm like, actually, no, it was the best decision I have ever made.
That's an interesting response. Do they like assume that it wasn't your choice, that it was your husband's?
Yeah. Or just like, oh my gosh, like that's such a terrible thing to go through. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like it's transformative. I know it's not for everybody, but coming out on the other side of that, it's like, I am a fucking communication expert. Like, I know how to communicate in a relationship. I know how to, understand when things are kind of off and nip it in the bud. I know how to work. Like, my ex was from Mexico, and so that intercultural relationship as well. Like, I am so, how do I say this? I'm so confident that in my next relationship, I'm going to be able to make it a success that, like, it doesn't even faze me. It's like, if that bothers the person that I've been divorced or that I'm not a virgin or whatever, it's like, okay, you're not my person. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
That being said, there certainly was and still is some baggage from that last relationship. My ex, he's a great guy. I smack talk him on my podcast at times, but all things being considered, like, he's a pretty decent person. So I consider myself fortunate to still have an amicable divorce. Like, we don't talk. We're not really friends or anything, but kind of from that standpoint is like me just being able to work through my baggage and my trauma, but having it be always something that it's like I never look back and question if that was the right decision. I totally have my back on that. So if they have a problem with it, I don't really care,
I mean, all you can do is lead by your own, as we said earlier, value system and your own intuition. And, it's as you said also earlier, it's none of their fucking business. Like, you went through a relationship, it ended. They don't need to know the reasons why, whether you instigated it or your ex-husband instigated it. It's part of your past. I really just feel like anytime you meet someone with the intention to start a new relationship, your past is irrelevant. Like, it made me who I am, but all you need to know is you're meeting me starting now, going forward, right? So, it's interesting to me that people need to comment on whether, I don't know if this is just sort of part of our culture that we need to dismantle this, like, idea that divorced people are damaged. Do you know what I mean? Like, assuming that there was, because we know how traumatic divorce is. We've seen the movies, we've heard the stories.
Make it work.
That too. Either you're so broken, you like had to ruin a marriage, or you came out of it and you were fighting with your ex for 4 years and it was traumatic and painful. I don't know.
Yeah. Or just like somehow that you're not good at relationships in some way. Like that's a red flag in their past. It's almost like once a cheater, always a cheater. Once a divorcee, always a divorcee. I do pick up on that sometimes, but again, not my problem. If you're not mature enough to handle that, then okay, you're not my person.
Right, right. How, was it difficult for you to get to a place where you were like, I'm ready to start doing this again? Like, what was the transition like for you?
Ooh, yeah. So for me, it's a little bit complicated. I knew 2 years into the marriage that it was going to end, like, intuitively. I knew, but brain wise, I was like, we can make this work. We can make this work. And I tried so many times and was broken so many times. And like the final straw, it was just like, at some point I was like, you know what? I'm complete. This chapter has been complete. And so when I moved to China, I had already kind of been processing everything for a while. So I moved to China and then was totally sucked into the transition of moving internationally into a country that is as different from America as is like black to white.
Yeah.
Totally different. So for the first year, I was kind of just like numb and completely unaware of how much trauma I was carrying from that relationship. And I didn't really start to notice it until I started dating again. Also, I forgot what your question was. So.
I mean, you were answering it.
I feel like I'm just always going on tangents. So, yeah.
No, just talking about, because I've never been divorced and because I've never been married, I'm just curious about what the emotional and psychological journey it is to leave that behind you and to get to a place where you're ready to start a new relationship.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like I started dating and it was like I wasn't ready, but I knew that I wasn't going to be ready until I started, if that makes sense. It was like I'm just going to focus on getting to know people and making friends, learning what I like and what I don't like. And like, I was very deeply wounded. And so I wasn't really in a place for a relationship when I went out and started dating. But still, I was like, you know what, we can be brave and, you know, kind of try this out and try different things. And so from that standpoint, I think in the beginning, I really used the dates and the experiences as a way to notice where I was still carrying baggage and what parts needed to be healed. Different things that people would say, or when I did like have the boyfriend that I had, it was like where the wounds were is like if he wouldn't clean up his dishes. That triggered me like nobody's business. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. Let's work on that a little bit. Because that was just a thing from the old relationship, is I didn't feel that the labor was shared. And so kind of just being really patient with myself and using the experiences for me to A, learn how to give people a chance and be who they are without carrying in past baggage. And also, yeah, just using that as a chance to get to know myself a little bit better and to love myself and really love on those parts that were still wounded, because I wasn't really able to see that. I didn't actually get angry at him, at my ex, for about 1.5 years for all of the things that he did. I kind of had taken all of that narcissistic and gaslighting onto myself and really put it on myself. So it was really a breakthrough when I started like getting angry at people that I was dating. It's like the first stage of grief, I think. So
yeah. That's really intense. I was, while you were talking, I was thinking, you know, I haven't, like I said, I haven't been married and I haven't been divorced, but anyone who listens to the podcast knows that I was in a 5.5 year relationship, which is as long as your marriage, it might as well have been a marriage. It was a very, very serious relationship in my 20s. And I'm so thankful that dating apps were not around during my breakup, because I think what I'm hearing is happening with people is that uncomfortable void when you're done with a relationship where you almost don't really know quite what to do with your time yet. You know, you're used to sharing your life with another person and all of a sudden you're alone. I think it's an easy fill to go on the dating apps just to quote unquote see what's out there. You know what I mean?
yeah, instant gratification.
Yeah. And you're telling yourself that you're healing that way because you're looking for new people. But all you're doing is actually ignoring the real healing that you have to do with yourself. You're just sort of transferring the uncomfortable emotions onto an activity, onto something that can distract you. Yeah. And I always say it's so ridiculous, but I mean, I cried at night for 2 years. Like my grieving process for that relationship was so long. It was so long. Yeah. And I could not date anybody in that time period. I couldn't even think about it. So I'm really grateful that I didn't have a phone in the bed next to me, because I think I would have done some really not smart things that wouldn't have allowed me to heal properly. You know, you just got to sit with your discomfort and be like, yo, it's you and me, baby. We got to figure this out. It's our life. I got to the point, this is ridiculous, but I got to the point where I would just straight up talk to myself like I was two people. So instead of checking in with
so much
with your ex, when you would be like, well, what do you want to watch? Or like, what do you want to eat for dinner? I would just basically have that same instinct towards myself. So I would just say,
you were dating yourself.
I dated
I love that. It's beautiful.
I did. I'm curious, and you don't know, and it's just a curiosity whether being in another country helped you process that faster, or, you know, it's just so interesting to me that you were so brave enough to move your life all the way across the world. So you're dealing with transitioning your life, but also transitioning your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably some interesting parallel that I'm not able to draw. But all I can acknowledge is, like, I think you were super brave, and I think it is a really cool story.
Yeah. I mean, I also think it's a cool story. In terms of whether it was brave or not, I don't know. What I do know, though, is that it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
I was not able at that time to feel my feelings. I was so numb from just years of trying to make it work and bending over backwards to make sacrifices to make this marriage work, I had such a small idea of who I was at that time. I don't know if you've watched like Grey's Anatomy or not, but there's this scene where Christina Yang is talking about Burke, and she's like, I gave away pieces of myself and chipped away and chipped away and chipped away until like there was nothing left there. And I totally resonate with that. So like for me, being in this country, paradoxically, where I didn't know anybody, I didn't know the city, I couldn't read the signs, I could go out and do whatever I wanted and nobody would care, gave me a chance to really get in touch with myself and ground into myself. Very similar, actually, to what you did where you would talk to yourself and like date yourself. It was like, who do I want to be? How do I want to live my life? And I learned that by doing things that I didn't want to do. Like figuring out that I didn't want to do them by doing them and be like, oh, okay, well, that was yucky. Let's not do that again. But that's exactly what I needed because I wasn't able to feel my feelings at the time. I needed that almost as like that year of a buffer to just kind of learn how to process my emotions and be with myself and deal with my own stuff. And then when I started to come out of it, that's when I really started to like cry and feel terrible and like learn how to do things in more of a healthy way. But I wasn't able to do that when I first moved. And I think that if I would have stayed, I would have leaned on other people and other crutches in a way that for me would not have been useful.
Yeah, totally. Were you friends with Andrew at the time?
No.
So you guys met in your post-China, post-divorce life?
Yes. In my post-China, I went to Africa and he was there and he saved me from a hippo.
I still am not sure if that's a real story. Andrew, come back and tell me if that's a true story.
No, it's a falsehood.
Oh, Andrew!
But it's a good one, though.
It is a good one.
Did you
save her life in any way?
Maybe metaphorically, but in her defense, I did tell her to tell you that, and then I threw her under the bus promptly. We did meet on a Bumble date,
and you became friends. That's an incredible win.
Yeah, well, we're becoming friends. Yeah.
In process.
Okay. In process.
I'll take it.
As we say in Chinese, 我们正在做朋友.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they say in Chinese.
Please translate for us.
正在 means we're in the process of. 做朋友 is making friends, becoming friends.
Oh.
I'm just like, are you fluent in Chinese?
差不多. No, not even close, actually. Survival.
Your accent sounds incredible to me. So
my accent is great. My vocabulary, not so much.
Listen, that looks like one of the hardest languages to learn. So
it is, yeah.
Just the fact that you can say a phrase with grace.
Well, I lived there for 3 years. I should be able to say something, right?
You would think. I still don't understand the full English language, and I've lived here my entire life. Andrew. First of all, let me give you the floor. Is there anything that you're burning to share with us or to respond to?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh, yes.
So, get in there.
I just think it's not just guys who are like getting on their phones during dates and whatnot. I did have a fairly unique experience once. I was going on a date with a girl in Denver, and we had met up like at a coffee shop, I think it was, and about halfway through the date, just kind of and it was going decently. I don't think either one of us was too interested. But it was still pretty funny because in the middle of the date, she got out her laptop, an actual laptop, and then began finalizing her fantasy football brackets.
What? No.
And I was just kind of sitting there kind of looking at her. I mean, I don't care. I've been on so many dates at this point. It's just whatever. So I just kind of sat there. I was like, well, this is interesting.
Did she at least like invite you to join? Was it like a group activity?
No, I think she was like instant messaging through the laptop with some of her friends about like which I don't know, football players.
That's phenomenal.
I know. I just kind of sat there. I'm easily contented, so I just kind of looked around.
I have heard that story that like of people being rude on their phones, like from both ends of it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't ascribe it to like masculine behavior, because my male friends have also told me some terrible stories about women getting on their phones, and like it's bad etiquette all around.
It's just rude. Don't do it. If
Don't
your
do
date
it.
is so terrible that you need to check your phone, grow a pair and say, hey, you seem like a lovely person. Or if they're not, don't say that.
Oh yeah.
But this isn't
true.
me. I'm not feeling it. I'm gonna go.
It's also just like, this is what bothers me, is like it's bad dinner etiquette. Like I would never do that to my friends. I would never do that on an interview. I wouldn't do that on a coffee date with someone I was looking to collaborate with. Like it's just bad etiquette, period, full stop. You know, like that's what pisses me off about it, because it's bad manners.
Yeah.
But before we get off on all of us getting America, let's go back to you, Andrew. What else were you vibing with? What else did you want to comment on?
Oh yeah, Rachel said we actually have kind of a similar background, where I also got married really young. I guess I got married when I was 22. We met when I was 20. I'm from Mississippi, and so it wasn't Mormon young, but it was Mississippi young. And we met when I was 18. We dated for a few years, got married at 20 and 22. I was 22. And then it was hellacious. We shouldn't have gotten married. We got married for the wrong reasons. And then we were married for 5 years and then got divorced. And then I also picked up and moved my life. I actually moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, which is the center of Mormondom. Which is kind of interesting. Another interesting corollary crossover there.
Total shift culturally. Absolutely. I buy that.
Well, some of it's very similar. Mississippi is the buckle of the Bible Belt, and I did grow up very conservative Christian, and there's actually a lot of similarities between Mormon culture and kind of conservative Southern Baptist culture, if you will. So yeah, everything she's saying was like spot on. I mean, divorce. It's an ugly affair. It's wounding. It's trauma. But sometimes it is the right course of action for you and the other person. And then you have to go through the work of processing. I did therapy. Like she said, I don't regret my divorce. I guess I regret that it had to happen, perhaps, or that I don't regret the positive outcomes of it. I was just telling somebody the other day, I'm pretty stubborn. And it almost takes something so traumatic and earth-shattering to get my attention, because otherwise I just keep kind of plodding along. So that divorce was the catalyst that brought me kind of to my knees, and that was then my opportunity to say, you know what? I need help. I need therapy. I need group therapy. I need men's groups. And honestly, I think everyone can benefit from all of those things. But that was the catalyst that has made me, as people say, who I am today, and pretty happy with who I am today.
Did you feel like you were also using dating in transition to discover what you wanted and your value system, sort of the way that Rachel was doing it?
No, it was just, we do have some differences in our story. I mean, when I moved to Utah, I was legally still married, even though we were separated and headed towards divorce. But it was really important to me. I talked to my dad at the time, and he's like, I don't want to go there to Utah. I don't know anyone. No one knows me. I could do or say or be whoever I wanted, reinvent myself.
Yeah.
No one had to know I was married, but it was important to me that, and what he said was, you have to do everything so that you don't have regret. You mitigate as much of the regret and the feelings of guilt as you can. And so I had left an open door to my now ex-wife, and it was just like, well, I mean, this is what you want, but we have to wait the mandatory, 60, 90 days in the state of Mississippi. And if you change your mind, you let me know. And she didn't, but I was then able to walk away with less regret and less guilt, knowing I'd done everything I could have on my part. Mm-hmm. So no, I didn't date anyone. I moved to Utah. I was single. I was married, but I didn't date anyone for I don't know, 6 or 7, 8 months, just because I thought that was right until the divorce was finalized. And at that point, I felt as if I had done a lot of the work. I'd already done therapy for about 1.5 years, a lot of men's support groups. And I did feel ready at that point to try and ask some girls on dates. But it was it was kind of funny because I grew up homeschooled, very conservative Christian, and we were taught that you don't date unless it's the person you're going to marry. You only can date the person you're going to marry. So
weird.
Well, there was a book that came out a long time ago called I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And it really made the rounds in the conservative Christian circles. And it was this idea of like courtship, and you don't just go out on dates willy-nilly. You're just giving away pieces of yourself.
Yeah, I've heard that theory too.
Yeah, it's funny because the author eventually came back and denounced his work and apologized. He even made a documentary, I think it's on Netflix, about how he was sorry, and then he kind of went through refuting different things he had said in the book. But it's still a pretty common story that very conservative Christian people don't date until they're sure they're the one.
But how would you figure that out?
Right.
Well,
this is like the weirdest catch.
I know. It's ridiculous.
I'm also like very viscerally annoyed and upset about the idea. This is very much from like a patriarchal system that you somehow quote unquote give pieces of yourself away, thus therefore devaluing yourself by meeting other people. Like that's very much like a hit against like the way that women are shamed for sleeping with other people, like the way that they're told that they lessen themselves as a whole the more people they sleep with. So that whole aspect of like you losing pieces of yourself, which doesn't actually make any sense, really upsets me.
And it may have roots in the patriarchy, but it's certainly not gender specific. Here in Colorado Springs, it's also pretty Christian conservative. And there's a buddy of mine who he's, like in his 40s, he's still a virgin, which is incredible. And that's like a Willy Wonka gold ticket, for any really religious woman is, here's this guy, he's 40 something, saving sex for marriage. And he met a girl about 1 year ago, and they went on some dates and it was going super well. And at some point, I guess in regular conversation, he was just talking about some other, past dating relationships. Again, never had sex, nothing even close to sex. But he just was telling this girl about some past dating experiences, and that was enough. And she ended things with him. And the reason was, you've been on all these dates with all these other girls. And again, just dates. And
oh my gosh.
I know
she thought like he was too used.
Yeah.
He'd been around the market.
Exactly. The village bicycle.
I think that when that does happen, it's because the person on the receiving end hasn't had the same experiences. So if she had gone on a similar number of dates, it wouldn't have been a problem usually. And I think that it's like a very similar thing is like sometimes I talk to guys that haven't been married. I can tell they've never had sex. I say something like about how my butt looked really good or something, and they like I'm getting hard or something. Like something like that I'm just like, okay, like loosen up a little bit. Like we need to normalize sex a lot more, not have it be something that is so taboo. Like sacred, yes, but viscerally like, oh my gosh, I'm damaged by saying the word. Like, come on.
You guys, I just want to like create a doc web series where I just go and like Jeanette from New York City comes in with her straightforwardness and her opinions about sex and feminism and like just rolls out the dating selection.
Film it in Utah. That would be so
yes,
good.
I would horrify people. They would be like, what kind of crazy, damaged, delusional alien woman. I mean, I would horrify them. I horrify men in New York, so big question for you guys that I'm personally curious about. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on this. But again, approaching this with curiosity. Obviously, no one wants to get divorced. It is a really, as we said, traumatic experience and very challenging for both. But the two of you have these wonderful stories where you went through this process and came out on the other end. It sounds like almost stronger and better. Do you think you would be the same person you are right now if you had not been divorced?
The answer is absolutely not. My beliefs about money, about being taken care of, about standing up for myself, about being a working woman, about children and raising and co-parenting, about my firmness in my faith and my spirituality, none of those things would have been possible had I not come up against a man that didn't do those things in the way that deep down I felt I desired. So no, I would not trade that for anything. Yeah, there's a lot of baggage. But if anything, I'm learning the skill of working through trauma, which makes me a better friend, makes me a better coach, makes me a more empathetic human in general. And that skill, it's invaluable.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, just for me personally, I certainly don't recommend people seek out getting married and then divorce so they can have this, this life-changing, phoenix from the ashes experience. If you can get it from a book, you should definitely, or a podcast, definitely go that route. But just knowing myself, like I was saying, I mean, I'm so stubborn and I'm so set. I can be so set in my ways and so clueless and unaware that I'm not those things anymore. But I was those things at the time, and I think it was almost necessary for me to make the changes and to do the work that needed to be done. Even work that had to be done from my childhood, I probably never would have done unless this kind of pushed me to the edge of myself. This whole being married and then getting divorced.
That's wild. It's a twisted concept. I'm with you.
Totally.
I'm so glad you guys have gotten to the place where you are. And of course we don't want to wish tough experiences on people in order to become better people. But I find that a really fascinating process of life. But either way, I'm glad you guys found each other and you're friends through mysterious reasons and mysterious ways, which are still not known to us. You went on a trip to Antarctica together and you both fell through the ice.
Yes.
And only one of you emerged unscathed. No, I'm making news stories for you for the next time you're on a podcast. Yes.
Excellent.
You're welcome. But I'm so glad you responded to my post, Rachel, and thank you so much for continuing to stay in touch with me and for bringing Andrew. I'm really honored to have both of you here with me. So thank you so much for joining me today.
This has been so fun.
An absolute pleasure.
It's so weird to get on the internet and talk with a stranger in another state whose face you can't see, right?
You are so cool. Come to Colorado, let's be friends. But
I would love, I was in Colorado actually a couple of years ago making a film, and it is stunning, stunning state. I mean, my heart was so full when I was there. So I understand your love of nature, Andrew, and I can see how you both can be very full out there. So maybe someday we'll take the podcast on the road.
Oh.
And I'll come reunite with all my guests. Until that time, thank you guys once more for being here. Thank you all for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, if you have a friend who has been through divorce, either it went well or it went badly, and think that they might have something that resonates with Rachel and Andrew's story, please think about sharing with them. As always, please follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on right now. And if you want to join us over on the IG, we are over at #SinglePod. We would love to converse with you over there. Until next time, we will catch you later.